The Square Ball Podcast.
Welcome to The West Stand. It's our new show that bookends the week, usually out on a Monday and a Friday, with guests from across the world of Leeds United, journalists, commentators, ex-players, and so on and so forth, and plenty more. Dan Moylan with you, with Michael Normanton and Simon Rix from the Kaiser Chiefs, and I believe you do a little show with the BBC.
Yeah, the second best Leeds United podcast, should we say, because we're in this room.
What are we, third, fourth, fifth? You were slagging us off the other day anyway, so we need to start digging you out. I know you weren't. I'm only kidding.
You were slagging Angus off, I'm going to say.
I think you started off by saying Michael's a bald fraud. Look at my luscious hair. Something like that.
I didn't really think about the fact that, it's bad timing, basically, wasn't it? I listened to propaganda yesterday and wondered about not turning up. But I think, should we get into it? Are we getting straight into it, or do you need to advertise something?
No advertising. No.
Shall I start advertising
just the bloody Kaiser Chiefs. That's all we're here to advertise. You guys.
Get some Furpo mugs.
Oh, you've got that. Yeah, Furpo mugs. We sold hundreds of them. Ridiculous amount.
I'll buy them slowly because I'm tired.
From packing them up.
I've got actual plasters on my fingers from paper cuts. Right. Dreadful business.
Oh, how poor.
Anyway, we suffer, don't we? We suffer for our art.
Very much so, yeah. Very much so. Sorry, yes. So, Kaiser Chiefs.
Slagging you off. I think maybe pointless, which is what I said, was maybe a little...
That's a strong word to use for Michael.
The wrong word, but it just felt like I enjoyed the interview and it was long, and I think you got a little kind of... I said this to you last night, didn't I? That I suppose it gave you a feel about how things were, but I think those previous Kinnear interviews, he's come in after the madness has stopped and the transfer window's closed, and I've gone like, okay, that explains that. Oh yeah, I guess that's okay. This is fine. And after this one, I kind of felt like, I don't know if I learned anything. If I was being really granular, I think a lot of that is debatable. And I feel like more worried about how Leeds United's been run than I did before. And I presume the point of him coming in is to be less worried and feel like those guys have got it.
What has worried you more then? Because I came away from it pretty much... Well, to deal with that first, yeah, I think we kind of know now, having done this for a few years with Angus, that it's a bit of a dance, and he's going to obviously say all the right things and we addressed it at the start of the show, the ownership, the players. He's not going to start digging out the players necessarily, not directly anyway, but he did describe the failure to win the playoff final as a failure. The season ended up as a failure. He's not going to start slagging off the recruitment team, the scouts, because they're all either his staff or his bosses. So I think we've got to a point now, and do you agree with this, Michael? We kind of know we're doing a bit of a dance, and we're getting a version of it, and we'll ask some questions, and he'll give us some answers, and you have to maybe at times read between the lines rather than taking just what he says at face value, for example. Yeah,
and I think there's some of the guarded stuff, you can understand it because I guess the other extreme of it is the Chileno phone call to a random bloke off the internet where he's busy telling him David Haig's a witch.
Which was very entertaining.
Which was great.
Say. Yeah.
Like if Angus had come in refreshed and started spilling all sorts of secrets, it would have been good fun. But I suppose he was a bit...
But that would have filled me with terror.
It was a bit party line-ish, wasn't it, at times? But I suppose the way I described it was it felt a little bit sad and depressing because it was just... A lot of it was just spelling out the financial realities of running a football club in the Championship, and it was a bit like, oh, well, yeah, I suppose. But yeah. It's kind of shit. It's like we have to sell them, and obviously next year, if we don't go up, it's clear there'll be a lot more sales, and it's just a bit like, all right, better go up then, I suppose.
Yeah, there was a bit of stuff in there from their perspective. Like, for example, the sale of Archie, let's say. So we know that they had to sell and put it to him. And the whole story has existed kind of on a pinhead, hasn't it? The Archie sale of, well, they wanted to go. It was a good move, but actually we had PSR issues that we needed to sell. And as I said to Angus at the time, these two stories have kind of been allowed to coexist. And maybe the truth is that both things were true. The move did suit the Grey camp in the end, but there's an origin point there at which is PSR. We have to sell him, and we know, don't we, from speaking to people that they had to, and it was quite a pressing need, and there was a bit of a kind of, look, we're going to be in trouble here if we don't. So I suppose it's reading between those lines. Do you have trouble reading between the lines, Simon?
I'm
joking.
He had a spin though of the spin was like, we have to, that's what I mean, it's kind of contradictory.
Yes.
Where he...
Well, we'd be upset at that.
He is saying we didn't need to sell Archie because we only need to sell 2 players. But then we do need to sell Archie because of PSR at the time. But we didn't need to sell him because he said it wasn't the 1 year, it's the 3 year, which I don't understand.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that we had to sell him at that exact moment, even though we did sell him at that exact moment.
Yeah, I went away from that and thought about that. Yeah, because he said we didn't need to do it to meet this year's target because, just to explain, you get an allowable loss amount per year. In the Championship, it's £13 million per year, isn't it? It's 5 plus your owners can put in another 8 to make it up to 13. And obviously, if you drop into the Championship, it reduces it from the Premier League level, which is, I think it's £35 million a season. So you're automatically dealing with a drop each year. So every year you spend in the Championship, your parachute payments drop and your allowable losses drop. So you've got to claw money back from somewhere. But you are assessed on a rolling 3-year period of whatever those 3 figures are. So it might be 35 million for the Premier League, 13 for the Champo, and then another 13 for the Championship again. So you're constantly dealing with reducing amounts and a massive wage bill.
I suppose the point would be you might not have been necessarily breaking rules, but you do make things massively easier for yourself in the coming years if you can get some money into the previous year, I suppose would be the thinking on it.
Yeah.
Because it's about this rolling period.
But there's no denying that the timing of the Archie sale was very much at the end of year. I think the evidence points to exactly why they were doing it at that time. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean and why it could rub you up the wrong way if you thought, well, we didn't need to sell him then, but actually we did.
Yeah. And also at the end of the window, because we sold Georgie, maybe we didn't need to sell Archie. Yeah. And to me...
That was something I realised in the days afterwards, Simon. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I was like, oh, well, we didn't need to do it that way round then, did we? Or did we?
And then he's saying that... So, because earlier on he said we didn't need to sell him at that point. Then later on you're like, oh, you could have just waited and we could still have Archie. Okay, well, that makes me unhappy and makes me feel like I'm less confident about the football clubs being run. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know. I thought Rob had a really good point the other day where he said about... He was trying to sell us Brendan Aronson's a great signing for the Championship if we'd paid half as much money for him, but then we didn't pay half as much money for him. And we bought Georgie and he needed 6 or 7 months to get up to speed. And we're just sort of saying that he was, like we all thought, the wrong person to buy at the wrong time. And I don't know. And then, I don't know, just a lot of stuff. And then they can't run a T-shirt sale.
Mm.
About the
Adidas Originals.
We are one of the teams that could... get into the top 6 or 8. He kept changing his mind, I think. We could be up there competing for Europe, but we can't sell some T-shirts online at the moment. So it feels like there's a long way to go.
Yeah, no, I don't think if you spoke to people privately within the club that they would necessarily disagree. There's lots of work to do, from an infrastructure and structure point of view. He did touch on it though, didn't he? Where he was sort of talking about the staffing levels. I think they will probably, if and when we go up, if we can ever actually manage to achieve that again, we'll see a vastly different Leeds United in terms of organisation because you can afford to employ a lot more people to do a lot more things.
Yeah, hopefully. I think when we were in the Premier League last time, someone said to me that we have the one person doing social media and Fulham had 7.
Yeah.
Seems like, it's just going up and staying up. But I think you've touched on this before where we went up in the Premier League and that was the promised land. And then we came back down and the stadium's not started. We haven't got any new staff. Nothing really, a few things got better. Some paint got put on.
Yeah, but there is a feeling of...
It didn't even do the dugouts.
Yeah, but they didn't have to. I think they got dispensation, didn't they, from the Premier League. It was either removed from the rules or they could say, if you're going to develop your stand, then there's no point, which is obviously on the agenda. And that's why I've kind of come around to the idea of thinking that the West Stand does need to be redeveloped, because I agree with you in that you go back in there and you're still looking at something from effectively 30 years ago. And it feels like we've probably spent a great majority of that 30 years treading water. And I think when we came back down, that's what's kind of inspired the feeling of apathy. It's like, we're here again. We've got such loftier ambitions compared to this. Can we just go up? And I was very much a kind of in the preserve Ellen Road forever, as you've kind of touched on before, until when Phil was off having his head drilled and we had Eddie Gray on that show who came in and guested and he said, no, knock it down. Because I thought that Eddie being of the, the Reevy era would be keen to kind of preserve that stuff. And Eddie went, no, knock it down. So that's the thing that got me into thinking, do you know what? We do need to knock it down. We need to start seeing signs of progress. I also accept that the signs of progress, much as getting out of the Championship and going into the Premier League, will probably be horrible for a while. the atmosphere will get further damaged by a bigger stadium. So it feels like everything comes at a negative cost at the minute when you're not winning games. But if we beat Cardiff at the weekend, everyone's going to be happy as Larry and everyone's going to be all for it. It's like we're heading for promotion, a bigger stadium, sell out Ellen Road, challenging for the top 6 to 8.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the redevelopment of the stadium immediately means no leg room, because at the moment I've got loads of leg room. It's an amazing seat. It's the biggest. I think I've got the most leg room in the stadium, including corporate.
Whereabouts are you?
In the West Stand, but there's this certain row that is just...
Oh, is it like getting the aeroplane?
You can stretch out. It's great.
Is that row where there's the weird bit of metal in front of it that people walk along?
No.
Oh, you don't want to tell people, do you?
Oh, they have got more leg room than us, but they've got people walking in front.
Yeah.
Ours is just a random row. It's just a normal row, but it's got double the amount of leg room.
Just a flaw in the plans.
I was going to say, it's
like, oh shit, there's another room.
I said airport. I meant it's the aeroplane emergency exit seats, isn't it? When you manage to bank one of those, or row 1.
Still wooden as well, still on a wooden seat, which I always like to tell people. I was speaking to a guy, a Spurs fan, and comparing that when I went to the Spurs stadium, I had a heated, padded seat. And when I go to Ellen Road,
I mean, that sounds like
seat.
woke nonsense.
What, the heated?
Yeah.
It was great. Really good.
I mean, if there is...
I think you've got to describe anything modern, you've got to describe as woke, haven't you now?
Correct, yeah. Although it's going to have a carbon footprint attached, is a heated seat.
Right.
Which is anti-woke.
Right. Oh, wow.
Think about it that way. Unless it's wind powered or something.
The windmill above your head.
But yeah, I mean, if there's a new stand, you'll have leg room. They don't build stands like the stand anymore.
They're not.
Where they just went, fuck it, just wedge people in. It's fine. Has anyone done any measurements? Nah, that's probably room.
I was going to say I am long of back and short of leg, and I'm still like wedged in to my east stand seat.
East lower is tiny.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah. And I'm in where they built the new bit, not the preserved low fields at the front, but the actual bit that they chose to build anew, and they've not done a good job. But that's probably not getting touched for a bit.
But it was £5 million.
I think it was 5.5, Michael.
Well, still.
That extra £500,000.
I think if you could build the West Stand the same for £5.5 million, I would do it tomorrow. Are
you actually, this just as a total diversion, because my mind was just cast back to being in my seat, and it happened on Saturday. Does it ever happen with you where you'll get people walking up and down the rows confused by the concept of letters and numbers? So you're like, oh, I'm on row G. They'll be looking at the gangway, looking for the letter G. Like, G100. Is that, are you, and they're not quite sure how to figure out how letters and numbers work?
It's confusing when you're not in an area of a stadium normally. Right. When you've got a season ticket, you just know it. I don't even know exactly which seat I've got, because I always get there late. So I just go by the people around me. I know who I stand between.
It's just a feeling.
So I just get there and I know it's row M, and I'll just keep walking down it till I know people. I'll be like, right, this is where I am.
On the seats, have you noticed that with the new system where you can't give up, you've got to give up your season ticket, basically? There's a lot more tourists. So like there was never a problem with the seats because, basically it's mostly season ticket people where I am. So there occasionally be an empty one, but it's basically, you're basically sat with the same people all the time. Whereas now, in August, when everyone's on holiday, there's just strangers everywhere.
Oh,
awful.
Outsiders.
I was sat on my own for one game, just on my own. It was terrible.
Do you come here often? No, it's my first time.
Yeah, so there's lots of people,
Stranger
bewildered,
danger.
Sitting in my seat.
When you say stranger danger.
Stranger danger.
Right. What else is worrying you then about the current state of play that you took out of the Angus interview?
It's just that it seems there wasn't anything specific. That's what I mean. It's more like that you would ask a question and he would answer it, and there would be a little bit of spin, a little bit of depression sometimes, yeah. But then there'd be another question and another question, and it just felt like it's like he was trying to just get through it. Do you know what I mean? Rather than being like positive, this is the plan. We've got a whiteboard in the office that's got a direction. I don't know.
A word cloud.
Stuff like this is the point I made on our podcast, was about the Joe Rodon. He was insisting on being on the pictures thing. I was like, this is a story, is a good story. Like, it's a good narrative. But if honestly him being in the pictures would have ruined them, then that is such a terrible marketing decision that you shouldn't have done it.
Well, we also know they photographed Archie Gray for the away kit.
Yeah, also
and that ruined them.
So Archie, Georgie, Somerville, did they not photograph those guys? They just Photoshop it. I mean, I can Photoshop people out of pictures nowadays.
Right.
There was one of the team photos in the 90s was really badly photoshopped, wasn't it? Was it Darren Huckabee got stuck in?
On Hasselbank's
on
body
Hasselbank's body or something. I'm sure I've got a vague memory of this.
Yeah.
We've mentioned it many years ago.
That is something, again, while we're going old man shouting at cloud, you don't get team photos anymore, do you? Or do you?
No, you don't. It's all it's all just a series of individual shots, isn't it? Yeah, you never get the one of them in the stadium with the physios on and all that sort of.
That's the transfer window, isn't it? Because they used to do it at the beginning of the season, right? And now it would not be the same. So yeah,
you're then asking them to go in, aren't you? And I'll put the school benches out on the pitch in front of the East Stand in September. Yeah, I did a poster on your wall. You're going to say it, yeah, same. But maybe that speaks to our age and the fact that kids don't do that anymore. They just want to sit on their PS5s. Simon.
I like the fact you have to count the number there.
Yeah. What generation are we up to?
Sat on the SNES.
Yeah. Oh, PS5 Pro's out now, isn't it? There's always another thing you got to buy. iPhone 25. Sick of it. General direction of travel, though. Do you think we're going to go up this year? How are you feeling about it?
Well, I think that if you look on forget about the all club issues and just think about the team. And Farke, I think as well. I know Farke's been getting a lot of slight abuse this week, really. But I think that him and the players, so far this season we've seen, I don't know, has there been a really genuinely bad performance? I think we drew with Portsmouth, but at the beginning of that game we were absolutely amazing. West Brom, I think he just went there with a mission and achieved it, and they're top, are they?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good point away, obviously. And then I think Saturday was disappointing, but we played well, did we? We created a lot of chances. It was just classic Leeds kryptonite of giving a stupid goal away and then not being able to break them down, and the other team just sitting. And Burnley have got better players than most people in this league, so they're probably more capable of keeping us out than anyone else. So, Cardiff, we've all mentioned it, bottom of the league, 1 point all season. If there's a team that could change that fortune for them?
Well, we'll talk about the Cardiff game in a moment. I was just going to say overall on the general feeling, the more we've recorded this week, Michael, the more I've realised that my general response to the loss at the weekend against Burnley was just a bit of it's not fair. And I fully accept as a grown adult that you will lose matches in this league. It is just an inevitability. And that, I suppose, as one of the good teams in the league, you are, as you say, likely to drop points against them because they've got more capable players than most teams. But I've realised much of it is just general overall existential dread about being in the Championship, the grind that it involves getting out of this, sometimes the grind you face in individual matches, like, for example, the Blackburn home game last season, which we should have won and been out of sight, and we got sucker punched. It's just what happens in the Championship. But that doesn't mean I have to like it or get on board with it. I'm allowed to be immature and go, that's not fair. That's basically what I've taken out of the last 7 days.
I think the second, saying that we've not had a bad performance, I agree there's not been one completely bad performance necessarily. Actually, Middlesbrough, but that was a cup game. Yeah. A lot of changes.
I forgot about that. Just to ignore that one.
Weirdly, though, it did have a bit of psychological damage, I think, did that, because everyone was like, oh, this is terrible.
Yeah.
And then it sticks. But the second half against Burnley, I think, was terrible. We didn't create anything. It felt very much like we had completely run out of ideas in that half.
Well, what do you think of Farke's football?
I will say about that, we were trying hard though, weren't we, during that second half? It's just that they were resisting hard and had a great goalkeeper. But because I think about Burnley as well, when we turned up last year with Georgie and Somerville and everyone, and their other teams must have been like, well, this isn't fair. I kind of felt like that about them with their goalkeeper. It was just like, well, he's too good to be in the Championship.
He's not normally, though. We listened to Burnley fans saying it's the best he's ever played for them.
Oh, really? Because he's an England call. He got an England call up and stuff, didn't he? Mind you, that maybe that doesn't mean anything. Anyway, on to Farke, which was the question. I just think that he is what we wanted, isn't he? He's pragmatic. He isn't afraid to do a West Brom and go and just get a point. But he also, people think it's boring football, but on Saturday there was flicks and all sorts of things going on, wasn't there? Do you know what I mean? In the box. And
it's just not Bielsa football, is it?
It's not.
But as Rob uncovered earlier in the week, and he's made a good point, even when Bielsa was here, we were going through the same anxieties and hoping that the football would just be tweaked a bit. I wish he would just be a bit more pragmatic. I wish you just make this sub. And actually, when you zero in on individual games where things don't go quite as you want, that's where I think the frustration stems from. If you take a step back from it, like now we're recording this on Thursday, and there's a bit of distance between now and Burnley, I feel a lot better about it because I can accept that these things do happen. But would have quite happily shut it all down, this whole thing, never podcasted again on Saturday. Just, in a brief kind of passing feeling, not anything serious, but you just think, you're supposed to be my escapism. This is supposed to be fun. Go away.
It comes to a weird... We've talked about this quite a bit in the past in relation to Bielsa and Marsh, I suppose, that the credit in the bank thing, it feels like Farke towards the back end of last year used up quite a lot. His battery was fairly low, I think, with people. And so we've come into a new season and he's not got an awful lot to work on from the end of last year still. A bit like how Bamford got a lot of leeway from... People didn't like him, then he had that really good season, and people were willing to cut him slack for absolutely ages. And then it reaches a point where people are like, I'm kind of annoyed with him again now. And it feels like Farke never had quite enough in the bank. And so a lot of these, that goes with a lot of the players as well. So that, if Brendan Aronson has started well, but if he has 5 bad games in a row, people are going to quite quickly remember the fucking off bit rather than the coming back and scoring some goals bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think like most managers, if another manager had come in and got the amount of goals we scored last year, had changed like the trajectory, made Georgie from being a player that we thought was a complete flop into someone that we were very upset about losing. Actually, he's managed to get Junior Firpo fit. Do you know what I mean? How's he done that? All of that stuff. Most managers, I think, would be getting their names sung and generally be fan favourites. But I don't know if it's because the way he sort of started, that beginning was not his fault, but we started, so it stuttered to start last year, and we're kind of doing a little bit similar this year. I just feel a bit like he's never really got a load of momentum, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just looking at last year because I've not thought about that in terms of credit in the bank.
I think this stage last season, there was still sympathy for him because he'd come into the whole loan shit show with everyone leaving. And there was a kind of an acceptance that it was difficult. Whereas this year, while players have left, it's felt more controlled and players have come in to more directly replace them. And I feel like it's his team now. He can't really make excuses on that front.
Yeah. This time last year was the Millwall win when it properly sprang into life. So we went to Ipswich and won, and we all thought, actually, some good players here. And then there's obviously a little bit of late window churn. But then September, it was Sheffield Wednesday at home where we drew 0-0. Should have won that. Did win at Millwall, and then drew at Hull, which was the road on sending off, wasn't it? And we probably should have won that based on the first half performance alone. And then we had the little wobble at Southampton, but it didn't properly kick into life until post Southampton, which was the last week of September. And then I'm looking down the Wikipedia results. There's just so much green all the way through to Christmas, little wobble at Christmas. But then again, we picked it back up again and it was green all the way until late March. And then, all the bad thing happened at the end. So he did win a lot of games, didn't he? And maybe it just needs that little bit of time. I don't know, like a car rolling downhill. It just needs a little bit of time to gather momentum.
Just wonder if
a car rolling downhill sounds bad, though.
With a driver in it, with somebody on the pedals.
Right, okay.
I don't mean uncontrolled, sorry.
Cool.
I think if he'd have come in and had the Stoke game, and then I think we went to Derby away, didn't we, the first 2 Bielsa games, where everyone was just like, oh, wow, amazing. I think if Farke had just had some of those games early on, like first few weeks, maybe he'd be in a similar position. And also, I can't remember, but I don't think we've actually ever really... We've dominated loads of games, but we've never, in his tenure, taken someone apart, have we?
No.
Even
Ipswich 4-0.
Yeah, that was the one, yeah.
I'm just looking through the results. So Swansea 4-0.
That was very comprehensive, but that's because Swansea were playing, like, they had the defensive line somewhere on the halfway line, and we just kept like knocking it over the top and scoring.
Yeah, we had that number, didn't we? Cardiff was a 3-0.
But that shows, doesn't it, that I don't think we've beaten anyone comprehensively. That's my sort of narrative in my brain. But we have.
Yeah, I think under Farke there's been comprehensive sort of 2-0s as well, where we've just got in front and not giving them a sniff. There have been quite a few of those because of the nature of the football, I guess, that we can just get a lead, and particularly if it's a 2-goal lead, and are just content to see it out more or less, just knock it about.
Yeah, and it always feels like it's got one eye on that approach. Feels like it's got one eye on the length of the season, because he's spoken frequently as Farke about the length of the championship season, how many games you've got to play.
49.
But I think that was slightly betrayed by the ending to the season. So if your approach towards the football is supposed to be geared towards like not exhausting your players, so not going hell for leather in any one individual game. If it's 2-0, it's 1. We can just sort of back off and preserve our energy for next week. But then if you do that, you've kind of got to have it like in the can. It's got to be ready to go for the final weeks of the season. And actually it wasn't. They all felt like they all went hiding and the whole thing just collapsed. So what was the point in preserving your energy earlier in the season if that's going to happen anyway? So it felt like a little bit of a sort of a low-key betrayal is not quite the right word, but it didn't plan out.
A miscalculation, I suppose.
It didn't quite pan out as you wanted it to. So what was the point? Why didn't you just entertain us along the way? Be more entertaining, Daniel.
More entertaining than most goals since whenever it was. You know what I mean? He scored loads and loads of goals. But do you think he made a mistake last year in not using the squad quite as well? Because you say that about him preserving the energy and stuff for the end of the season. It's a long season. And he knows all about it. Like he's the championship expert. But then some people like Jadon Anthony, he didn't really use him at all, despite the fact when we saw him, he looked good enough to play games. And only really that, I think it was Stoke away, wasn't it, where he made a load of changes and it didn't work.
I don't think he rated the squad.
And then he just never did it again.
Squad, yeah. I think the gap between what Somerville was delivering and then if you put Anthony in as his replacement, you're just not going to get the same output or the same threat. So he didn't trust them. I don't think he trusted the more fringe players a lot of the time.
It is weird how we've gone though from last season where he essentially refused to use Joseph, even though people were crying out for it. A few months can't have made all the difference for him to now all of a sudden be very much cemented as our first choice striker.
Must have done.
I don't believe it. I think he was trying to stick with what he was doing last year, even though the Pirro, Bamford, Georgie thing, it never quite worked in those final weeks of the season, and people were desperate to see something else though.
That's an interesting point that I've picked up on another thread that's kind of emerged this week. When people have been searching for the answer always becomes the other, doesn't it? The thing that's not happening is the thing that people think will fix the problem. So that's which is why Bamford always gets put back in. Where Pirro sits in this is interesting me this week because people are saying you've got like a 10, 12 million pound striker there who has scored a phenomenal amount of goals at this level over the last sort of 3 or 4 years. Surely you have to find a way to make him work now. If he doesn't work as number 10, because I don't think he's mobile enough, but surely you have to find a system or you make your system work around feeding Joel Peru, even if he does nothing else but put that ball in the net 2 or 3 times a game, which I'd quite happily accept.
Just 2 or 3 times a game?
That's all I'm asking for.
That seems reasonable.
A 50 or 60 goal season, Michael. I think he's fine. But no, the point I'm making is you've got one of the top scorers in the championship there, and yet we don't seem to know how to use him most effectively. And he's getting brought off the bench and put up in a 2, maybe playing as a number 10. Just make him work.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem to be able to. It took him all last year. He was playing, wasn't he? Another thing Angus said was like, if he'd have played at number 10 the whole season, he would have got 20 goals. I'm a bit like, well, if he'd have got 20 goals, then we would have played him there. You know, like he got taken out because it wasn't working, right? It stopped working.
Yeah.
But he can't play 9 because he doesn't do the closing down and all that stuff, and he can't play 10. So I think his role is the role he played against Hull, where he came on and scored that great goal when there was more space, when we were winning and we need to finish it off. That seems to be the thing he's going to do. Yeah,
I mean, because if Joseph does go off the boil, which is where the thought came from here, or he needs a little rest, because it is his first season, and we saw from his early game finish against Burnley, he's a little bit raw still, isn't he? He's not quite got the settled into the championship scoring groove just yet. Big contribution, but he's going to need a rest at some point, or an injury might bite, or whatever it is. And Pirro is obviously the backup as it stands right now, and Bamford in third position. So he must have him in mind for playing up front, surely, no?
You would think so. How it works, don't know. But I mean, we've got different players behind him as well this time. If Pirro was up front, it is a different cast behind him, and maybe you can do some. We've been crying out for maybe a change in midfield as well. If Tanaka or Rothwell comes into midfield and we go with a slightly more attacking option there, maybe him up front starts to make a little bit more sense if you can find different ways to feed him, I suppose. Yeah,
we are recording ahead of Farke's press conference for Cardiff, so we don't know if there's any injuries or team news or anything. However, what would you do with the Cardiff lineup? Would you tweak it at all, Simon?
That's a great question. I don't know. My thing is like, kind of what you're saying is Gruev, who I think is a fine player and everything is good, but I would take him out and do something else there, because I think just in general, him and Ampadu playing together doesn't work. It has worked, but it doesn't generally work, because I think they both kind of want to do the same thing and they're both quite defensive. So yeah, bring on Rothwell, or is Tanaka more attacking, or is he just more Ampadu?
I think Tanaka, as a generational talent, he can do anything. He can do it all.
Dan's already decided he's our player of the year.
Hitched my wagon to Ao Tanaka, and because we're in this day and age now where you're not allowed to back down or change your opinion, you just got to double down and keep doubling down.
Stick with, yeah.
The greatest player ever to pull on the white shirt.
He was having a couple of pints in somewhere that I was the other day.
Is that right?
Yeah, which I was surprised about.
Interesting. Damn.
But it's good to see him assimilating with British football culture.
Mind you, we saw there's that really famous photo of Lucas Radebe and Phil Masinga in which pub was it?
It was the Peacock, wasn't it?
Was it? I think was it not?
No, it's the pub at the bottom of town, wasn't it?
Was it the Palace or somewhere?
Well, like that somewhere.
Yeah,
near the Tetley's.
But I know exactly where you mean, but I can't think of the name of it for the life. People will scream. Could be the Adelphi.
Someone will write and tell you immediately, I'm sure. But he was,
and they were great. Radebe in particular was one of the best defenders we had of that era. So
and John Sheridan was good too. So why don't we just recommend he goes out 5 nights a week?
Everybody goes out and has a skinful.
Seems absolutely perfect.
I went to say hello to him or whatever, just say good luck to him, and sort of started saying how you're enjoying Leeds and looking forward to the weekend or whatever. He looked very confused. Might be my voice, might be my accent. And then he pointed at his Leeds training gear that he was wearing, and then was like, that's how you know who I am. I was like,
A Japanese man in Leeds training gear. It's you, isn't it, Al? It's you. Yeah. So would you put him in if he's sobered up by then?
He was definitely not drunk. I was not casting aspersions. He was just having a leisurely. It was enjoying international break. Anyway,
you're a grass.
He looks tidy. At least the crowd would be excited, which would be good. But yeah, I think I would keep it roughly the same, apart from maybe a tweak there. I feel like, sorry for Rothwell, I feel like maybe I would try him because he was the person coming in. He's meant to be the most attacking of all those options. Cardiff surely need to be just beaten really, really easily in the first 20 minutes.
I mean, I know it's not just Leeds fans who think this, but everybody must be looking at that table and going, well, as we already did, 5 games played, 0 wins, 1 draw, 4 defeats, scored 1 goal, conceded 11, minus 10 goal difference, 1 point, bottom of the league, already 3 points adrift.
Was that QPR, wasn't it?
Shit.
That QPR game where they hadn't won for absolutely ages and ages and ages, and we just needed to just dispatch them to go up and didn't manage it. Yeah,
the rational part of your brain goes, we will go there and we will win because we are vastly superior to them because they're awful. And I'm glad they've held on to their manager for another week, and we might well see him off, I think, given the noise that's surrounded it. That's how it should play out. But there's that little bit of Leeds United just going, that's not going to work out. The little devil on your shoulder. You thought that before. You were wrong to think that. This goes wrong.
It's a long way. At least it's not the Friday night fixture, which will ruin everyone's weekend from the start. But I think we've got to win it. We've got to win that one. And I think actually do you sometimes think that the losses are good in terms of focusing minds?
But is this not going back to that absolute lunatic who once phoned in Radio Leeds? And you know the story better than me, the anecdote of the person who was in the Bielsa season was we need to drop out of the playoffs to get back in them?
Yeah, he thought that being in the playoffs but out of form was bad. So it would be better to drop out of them to then come steaming back into them.
Build some momentum.
Getting in 6th.
Do you know what else builds momentum? Not losing.
Correct.
Yeah.
If you lose it, then you can regain it. Right. Whereas if you're just bumbling along, you neither one nor the other. That was his argument, it seemed. It was nonsense, though, so probably don't do that.
They'll put anything out on Radio Leeds these days.
They will,
any old rubbish.
Give anyone a go.
Do you know what I mean, though, in terms of like, I feel like going into the Cardiff game, I prefer to have beaten Burnley or drawn with them, obviously, but given the loss, it's like, right, this is season's going to be hard. It's going to be a grind. You're not going to have it all your own way. Got to concentrate for another 40 games.
Oh, so you mean the Burnley defeat? So you're not advocating for a defeat at Cardiff?
No.
Oh, good. That makes me feel better. No. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah,
the nature of the Championship as well is if you lose a game, if you just win your next 2, it completely fixes it because everyone loses loads of games in this. Generally
there's
speaking,
no way you won't lose at least 8 to 10.
It's not like in the Premier League where if you lose like 2 of your first, if you're going to think you're going to win the title and you lose 2 of your first 5 games, you go, oh well, that's Man City's won it then. That's already too many points dropped. We're completely out of this already. You can generally get 90 points to get you up.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the losses last year. Ipswich lost the fewest at 6, which is probably a bit of an outlier, but they did draw 12. So Leicester lost 11, we lost 10, Southampton 11, West Brom 13. So you lose games. You're probably going to lose
It's a line at quarter of the games.
a quarter or 20% of your games ish, depending on how well it goes. So yeah, you just need to suck them up, I suppose.
1 down, 9 to go.
Yeah, it is. I think this is the thing, though. Is like what I was talking about earlier about the distance between the Burnley game and now. Is that I can be rational about it and say these things now, but on the day itself, it feels like the world's caving in. And if we go to Cardiff and don't win, and I mean, like, a draw is not going to be good there because people will say the bottom of the league, they don't score, whatever. We should be winning that, and we should. And the rational part of your brain knows that. But if it becomes 2 defeats on the bounce, people are just going to lose their shit.
I think Farke West Brom's it. We go there and grind out a 0-0.
You think
and
so?
everyone will be delighted. Just break the losing streak. That's the important thing.
Right, so the wingers don't go past the halfway line. Just pass it back to the fullbacks.
Hope so.
Junior, stay put.
Junior can't stay put. Someone else will have to do it.
Junior's playing 9.
Yeah.
Again.
He's just a free spirit, isn't he, Junior? No, we're going to go there, and we've got every reason. I think I'll choose my language carefully. We've got every reason to believe that we should win that game, given the ability we've got in the squad. And maybe a chance to see Laji Ramazani perhaps start to make an impact as well, because he's come off the bench a couple of times. We've not seen a right lot of him.
Are you putting him in from the start alongside Tanaka?
Yeah.
Who for?
The lads.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's hard, isn't it, being a manager?
It feels like it, yeah. Yeah.
I think he'll do the same, though, because he always does.
Yeah,
That's his vibe, isn't it?
Keep the same team.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons people get frustrated, is because he just does the same. And like, if it doesn't work for 3 or 4 games, then he'll change it. But it needs to be a really long period of it not working for him to believe that it doesn't work.
Yeah, and the daft thing is, Joseph missing that chance early doors against Burnley probably cements his place against Cardiff even more, because you don't take him out. You don't take him out when he's had I suppose it's going to be a blow to his confidence. We don't know. Maybe he's completely bulletproof in that way that some strikers are, but even still, it's going to play on your mind, I'm sure, a little bit.
He seemed to recover fine in the game, I thought. He didn't weigh him down, I didn't think, for the rest of the game. He was still getting involved in stuff. He still had a shot that was decent second half as well.
I feel like if I missed that, it'd probably weigh on me for about 10 years.
Just walk straight down the tunnel.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone.
I'm done here.
Fully ER right down the tunnel.
Just do the symbol with your hands. Take me off.
Fake hamstring injury. Yeah. Get yourself off.
Yeah. But we're going to win, aren't we? We're going to win, Simon.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Footballers are made of different stuff, aren't they, nowadays? So, like, Aronson, I agree with you about the Aronson's second, the miss to win that game, where that's just such a life-changing, like,
The Portsmouth thing.
Yeah. His whole trajectory at Leeds United has changed. Everyone would have absolutely loved him after that, and he's missed it. I don't know how you show your face in Harrogate after that.
I missed a chance when I was playing for the school team in the 6th form. It was from about a yard out, and it was coming out at height, and I kicked it over the bar inexplicably. The greatest miss you will ever likely see in a football match. It still haunts me nearly 30 years later. That's where I am on this. Yeah, I'd never go back.
They say you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, but they don't weigh on you as heavily, do they?
No. So it's better to hide.
It's better to hide.
Take no responsibility. No, I feel away win. We get back on track, and we all kind of go, "Oh, we were silly, weren't we, to even worry about any of this?"
Yeah, just win. Just win, stupid. They're crap.
Yeah, just win every game until the international break. That would be really, really good.
Which is in about 5 days.
Yeah, it's not long. Get Dan James back. Do you think, that's my other thing as well, stuff like, I know you just always do this as a football fan, but if we had Dan James v Burnley, where he can do that thing that he can do.
Put the zoomies on.
I just think maybe we're in that.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. He is a game changer at this level, isn't he? His ability just to pick it up and run in behind people and get defences on the back foot. 'Cause it never felt like we did that against Burnley. Turned them and got them running back towards their own goal. Not enough anyway.
No, definitely not. That's what the frustration was, wasn't it, with the turning back, was we never really broke in a sort of like a Bielsa way. We would have been steaming up there, wouldn't we, at every possible opportunity. So, yeah, but, I think there's following orders, and it's a long season, and it sort of worked last year, so let's just stick to the programme.
It sort of worked last year. What a ringing endorsement for
Well, it
Farker
worked,
Ball.
didn't it? It's really annoying because, like, you're like, if you're Farker, you're like, well, it worked. We got really, really close. We should have got up, so I'll just do the same this year. I've nicked all my best players. Okay, well, we'll have a reset. And I don't know, he hasn't had, all that stuff. He hasn't had much time to work with them and all that. I just think, just got to be patient.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there then. Thank you for coming in, and we'll do it again soon.
Yes.
You still going with your little band? Are they?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I came to announce something today,
all right.
But then it's been
Are
delayed.
you leaving? Oh, wow. Didn't expect
Joining
that.
the Square Ball team with everybody else.
I didn't mean your podcast band. I meant your actual band.
But I'll come in about a month.
Yeah.
And announce something instead.
Very good. We look forward to doing it then. We'll see you soon.
Nice one.
The Square Ball Podcast.